You know, on this show, sometimes we'll look at the wacky and zany and kooky things that right wingers say, and we'll laugh and we'll say, oh, it's so silly and it's so dumb. But we don't necessarily always worry for the future of humanity and the United States and our legislative bodies on the basis of, every random thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene or whoever necessarily says. I have an example today of something for you that does make me really worried about the future of American democracy, quite frankly, because of the level of ignorance that it shows, combined with a sort of brazen confidence despite that ignorance, and the reality that this may be someone who is going to be one of only 100 senators in the United States. Herschel Walker is a Trump-endorsed Republican Senate candidate running in the state of Georgia. And Herschel Walker recently asked, if there's evolution, if evolution is real, and we humans, Homo sapiens, evolved from apes, why are there still apes on the planet? If the apes evolved to become humans, why are there still apes? We're going to look at the video in a moment. There are more than 331 million people in the United States. Only 100 at a time get to be members of one of the most powerful legislative bodies in the country, the United States Senate. One of those 100 might be someone who questions the truth of evolution because there are still monkeys on planet Earth. Let's take a look at the clip. This is genuinely depressing. It really brings me, I have fear and despair because of this. I have no pleasure. This is not fun.
Here, that means somebody up there had to say, let there be light, that the earth started, and then he had to put someone there on earth. Because remember, Adam was there. Remember, Adam came there, then Eve came. So somebody had to start it out. So that means there had to be a God. Because it didn't just some bomb blew up and it started out. And then I'll tell you something.
Now, we're going to get to the really crazy part. This idea that, listen, if there was some first human, here's the first human, because you start this is not new stuff. We're treading on very worn ground here. The idea that you sometimes hear from creationists is, well, okay, listen, I came from a human mother, and my mother came from a human mother, and my grandmother came from a human mother. And so if you just follow that, at some point there was the first human mother, and therefore that person must have been created like that by a god or higher power. And of course, when you understand the slow process of evolution and you understand how that works, you realize that the premise is wrong. It's logical to think if ad infinitum, it was my mom and her mom and her mom and her mom and her mom, and it was just all modern humans. Right. You might end up saying, well, I mean, somebody must have designed and created that first human. But we understand that that's not the case. So this alone we could spend an hour on. But let's get to the really wacky part that's getting a lot of attention.
As I heard, and I think about this, because at one time, science said man came from apes.
It's not at one time, by the way. But yeah, okay.
Did it not?
That's when you go to the science. Every time I read or hear that, I think to myself, you just didn't read the same Bible I did.
Well, this was interesting, though. If that is true, why are there still apes? Think about it.
Now you're getting too smart for it.
No. Think about this. We have an evolution that is, we've gotten so intelligent that if that is true, why are there still apes? And then the conception of a baby. Let me tell you, science can't do that. They still trying to do it, but it can't because there had to be a God. So when God came...
Okay. Now, this is not actually a crazy question. I mean, you go to third or fourth grade when... I think that's when kids start being taught about evolution. There are lots of curious, naive, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed 8- and 9-year-olds who would say, hey, but if we came from apes, why are there still apes? Didn't the apes become human? And of course, there's an answer. Humans did not evolve from a modern living ape, like a modern chimpanzee. We evolved and descended from a common ancestor of apes. We share a common ancestor. That's the best science we have right now, which lived and died in the distant past. And that means we're related to other apes, and we and those other apes came from an earlier ape of some kind. Now, that's an 8 or 9-year-old that would ask that. Imagine if Herschel Walker becomes a senator. I mean, really think, we have 331 million people in this country to pick from. Some of them are kids, so we're not literally, okay, but we've got hundreds of millions of people to choose from. How do we solve really serious problems in this country? Inequality, poverty, education, hunger, climate change, when we have it's just 100 people in the Senate, and at least one of them, there might be others in the Senate who believe the same stuff, but when one of your 100 is a senator saying, if evolution is real, why are there still apes on planet Earth? How do we solve problems if that's the case? We can't. And so when we wonder, man, why politics is so log jammed and we're not getting anywhere, and it's these trivial arguments about stupid stuff and people getting fined for not wearing masks and people who think the vaccines modify your DNA. How we have 331 million people. The Senate has 100 members representing those people. And a guy who's saying, if evolution is real, why are there still monkeys on Earth, has a genuine shot at becoming one of those 100 and is endorsed by former President Donald Trump. It doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well, and it is not funny. It stopped being funny a while ago. One of our sponsors is Little Spoon, your one-stop shop for easy, healthy meals and snacks for your baby, toddler, or big kid. If you're a parent of any age child, Little Spoon makes healthy meal times simpler, and it saves you hours at a very reasonable price. Little Spoon makes everything fresh, just like homemade, but it's delivered to your door and ready in seconds. Pop it in the fridge or freezer, and it is ready when you are. They have 100% organic, cold-pressed baby food for every eating stage, awesome food for toddlers and for kids. They even just launched a new line of on-the-go smoothies that kids love. Everything is nutritionally balanced, no junk food, but it is kid-approved. It's food that they'll actually eat and enjoy. And you can't beat the prices with kids' meals under $5, baby food and smoothie snacks under $3. Little Spoon is giving my audience 50% off your first order. Go to littlespoon.com and use the code PACMAN. The link is down below.